On July 29, 1999, Atlanta was moving through another ordinary trading day. Offices were open, phones were ringing, computer screens were flashing with stock prices, and people were focused on numbers that could change their lives within seconds. But by the end of that afternoon, the city would be connected to one of the most disturbing workplace massacres in American history. At the center of it was Mark Barton, a 44-year-old former chemist, husband, father, and day trader. From the outside, Barton's life seemed like the story of an educated man who had taken a different path later in life. He had studied chemistry, worked in the chemical industry, married, had children, and eventually entered the fast-moving world of day trading. But Barton's story had always carried shadows. He was born in South Carolina in 1955 and grew up in a military family. People who remembered him from school often described him as quiet, intelligent, and socially awkward. He was good with numbers and science, but he never seemed to fully belong. Some classmates barely remembered him at all. In yearbooks, his name was reportedly misspelled, and his senior photo was missing. Even in youth, he seemed like someone standing at the edge of the picture, present, but almost invisible. As an adult, Barton appeared to build a normal life. He married Deborah Spivey in 1979, the same year he graduated with a chemistry degree. They had 2 children together, Matthew and Michelle. For a time, Barton lived the life of a working father, moving through jobs, family responsibilities, and the ordinary pressures of adulthood. Then, in 1993, something terrible happened. Over Labor Day weekend, Barton's first wife, Deborah, and her mother, Eloise Spivey, were found dead inside a camper at Riverside Campground in Alabama. The scene did not look like a simple robbery. Money and belongings were left behind, and investigators looked closely at Barton. His marriage had reportedly been strained, and he was involved with another woman named Leanne Vanderver. Barton denied any involvement. No one was ever charged. No one was ever convicted. But the suspicion followed him for the rest of his life. After Deborah's death, Barton gained custody of Matthew and Michelle. In 1995, he married Leanne. To the outside world, it looked like Barton had moved forward. But by the late 1990s, his life was beginning to fall apart again. He had become deeply involved in day trading. During the internet stock boom, day trading offices were full of people hoping to make quick money from fast market movements. Traders sat in front of screens for hours, watching prices rise and fall by tiny amounts. Some made money, many lost it. And for Barton, the losses became serious. He traded at offices in Atlanta's Buckhead district, including Momentum Securities and All-Tech Investment Group. At one point, people knew him by the nickname The Rocket because of how excited he became when trades went well. But by 1999, the wins had turned into losses. His trading privileges at one firm had already been cut off. At another, his account was under pressure, and a large check connected to a margin call reportedly could not be honored. At home, his second marriage was also collapsing. Leanne was reportedly unhappy and may have been preparing to leave. Money problems, personal conflict, and Barton's own unstable thinking were closing in around him. By late July 1999, Barton was no longer simply a man under pressure. He had made a decision. On Tuesday night, July 27th, inside the family's apartment in Stockbridge, Georgia, Barton killed his wife, Leanne. The next night, he killed his 2 children, 11-year-old Matthew and 8-year-old Michelle. Afterward, he arranged the apartment in a chillingly controlled way. He left notes near their bodies and wrote a longer typed letter. In that letter, Barton described fear, hopelessness, and the belief that his life had collapsed. He wrote that he did not plan to live much longer, but before he died, he wanted to kill the people he believed had contributed to his destruction. On Thursday morning, July 29th, Barton moved through the world as if nothing had happened. He visited an attorney to discuss estate matters. The attorney later said Barton seemed calm and normal. There was nothing obvious in his behavior to suggest that his wife and children were already dead or that he was preparing to commit more violence. Then Barton drove to Atlanta. At around 2:28 p.m., he entered Momentum Securities. The office was active. Traders were watching screens, answering calls, and following the market. Witnesses later said Barton appeared calm. At one point, he reportedly commented that it was a bad trading day and that it was going to get worse. Minutes later, he pulled out 2 handguns and opened fire. Panic spread through the office. Some people dropped to the floor. Others tried to run. In moments, the normal sounds of the trading room were replaced by gunfire, shouting, and emergency calls. 4 people were killed at Momentum Securities: Russell J. Brown, Kevin Dial, Edward Quinn, and Scott A. Webb. Others were wounded. But Barton was not finished. After leaving Momentum, he crossed Piedmont Road and went to Altec Investment Group, another trading office where he had previously done business. Some people inside recognized him. They had seen him before. They had no reason to believe he had come there to kill. Barton first moved toward the office area, where he approached staff members and drew them into a private space. Then he opened fire again. Some victims were badly wounded, but survived. Others in the trading room heard the shots and realized the danger was inside the office with them. People hid under desks, ran toward exits, and locked themselves in rooms. The office became chaos. Barton continued firing as he moved through the area. 5 people were killed at Altec: Alan Charles Tenenbaum, Dean DeVoe, Joseph J. Desert, Jamshed Havash, and Vadi Morali. Within minutes, police were dealing with 2 crime scenes on opposite sides of the same road. Officers searched offices floor by floor. Workers came out with their hands raised. Some remained hidden until police found them. Emergency crews treated the wounded, while investigators tried to determine whether Barton was still inside or had escaped. He had escaped. Across the 2 offices, Barton killed 9 people and wounded 13. But when police went to his home, the full horror became clear. There, they found Leanne, Matthew, and Michelle. The attack was no longer only a workplace shooting. It was a family murder, a massacre, and the final act of a man whose violence had consumed everyone around him. Police released Barton's description and warned the public that he was armed and dangerous. They searched for his dark green Ford Aerostar minivan. Because he had been reported to be a pilot, authorities also alerted airports. For hours, Barton's location was unknown. That evening, he was spotted near Town Center Mall in Cobb County. Police were alerted and began pursuing him north on Interstate 75. The chase ended at a BP service station about 30 miles northwest of Atlanta. Officers surrounded the minivan. But before Barton could be arrested, he took his own life inside the vehicle. When police searched the van, they found the weapons used in the shootings, along with additional guns and ammunition. There would be no trial, no courtroom confession, no direct questioning, no chance for surviving victims and families to hear him answer for what he had done. Investigators were left with the crime scenes, the letters, the trading losses, the broken marriages, and the old suspicion surrounding the unsolved 1993 murders of Deborah Barton and Eloise Spivey. The confirmed death toll from Barton's 1999 crimes was 12. His wife, his 2 children, and 9 people in Atlanta trading offices were dead. 13 others were wounded, and many more lives were permanently damaged. Some people pointed to his financial losses as the trigger. Others looked at his history, his relationships, his need for control, and the earlier deaths that had never been solved. But no explanation can make sense of the destruction he caused. Mark Barton's name became attached to the Atlanta Day Trading Massacre. But the people who truly deserve to be remembered are the victims, the workers who went to their offices that morning, the children who trusted their father, and the families who were left behind with grief instead of answers.